I've been consulting for more than 30 years. Firstly in Asia, Africa, and also CIS, Russia, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and other countries. Okay, and MG is Mongolia, Japan, Engineering, Education, Development. Because I know good examples, small countries like Ireland and Singapore. I was actually consulting in Singapore in 1980s. This is my experience career. I studied here Bachelor of Science Petrochemistry. I'm an engineer, and I used to work for Royal Dutch Shell Group. Yeah. I worked for this Royal Dutch Shell Group for about 10 years, and then I entered the consulting service field. And after that, I worked with James Abegland, who is the founder of, one of the founders of Boston Consulting Group. James C. Abegland there.
James Abegland,
And then I became independent. I have been working for various companies, but I have my own consulting firm. I apply my consulting concept of Kaizen, and followed by Kenzen, and value management, and small groups, small meetings. And I guess you all know Kaizen. It's a kind of concept to improve continuous improvement process. I want to introduce Kenzen. Kenzen is also another Japanese word. So just Kaizen doesn't work sometimes. You know, Kenzen is a kind of sound. It means sound. It means healthy in a long-term basis, you know, long-term basis. And value management is value for customers. That means we think we are working and we think we are doing something, but it is important for us to understand that we are creating value for our customers. The small meetings. In Japanese we say Shōshudan Katsudo. As I mentioned, my expertise is on strategy development, including national strategy development, turnaround management, project evaluations, corporate culture analysis. And the reasons, as I mentioned, Asia, Africa, and CS countries, including Mongolia, and specifically Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, and other countries. And industrial areas from manufacturing and investment banking, international conference, regional development, transportation, telecommunication, and almost all industries. I was consulting. I have some experience. These are kind of representative. Successful cases. I applied the Kaizen. For instance, Japan, Kazakhstan, Russia, Mongolia, and Kenya, and Africa had very successful cases. In Kazakhstan, I applied sales activities because basically CIS countries, there's no market concept, so they didn't know how to do sales. Okay, can I go on? Yeah, maybe I think you understand. How much do you think you are comfortable with only English? Okay, maybe 50%. Yeah, maybe I think your explanation can be a kind of summary, yeah, to make it shorter. Yeah, I think, yeah. And then 5 whys. How many of you know 5 whys? All know? Some of them you don't know. 5 whys is very, I will explain later, but 5 whys is a very important concept. And in Kazakhstan, for instance, within 1 year, salaries became 4 times, and all people are very happy because it is important for them to give more salaries to the workers. And then in Russia, customer orientation is very important. I stressed it. Productivity doubled and alcoholics drastically reduced. So I now feel after 50 years old, I became quite successful, and in fact, my experience in Africa, Ghana, was terrible. But I did small meetings, and it turned out that it is very successful. But I thought it is not successful at all when I was doing, but it turned out it is very successful. And people say to me, why are you so successful? Actually, my friends, consultants, say, is that because my English is very good? But I don't think that way. I think I'm successful because I take a holistic approach, I mean comprehensive approach. As I hear, I'm saying that I'm quite confident whatever I do, I will be very successful. Because I believe that people want to do better, and people want to enjoy jobs, and people want to be richer. I mean, they all have desire to develop themselves. Actually, some of you think that Mongolia has a small population, so you may find it difficult to develop more, but I think because of its small population, it's easier to develop. By taking examples of Singapore, where I was consulting, and also Ireland from 1990. Both countries, I mean, if you're very good as young people, young students, they used to lead their countries to work outside because they had better opportunities outside rather than inside. In case of Singapore, when I was consulting, it was one of the kind of underdeveloped, sort of developing countries, and now they are making twice as much as the average Japanese, 80,000 US dollars, Japanese 40,000 US dollars in terms of GDP per capita. Both countries were colonies of UK, but in case of Ireland, they had potato farming. Do you know potato farming? A few centuries ago, they lost 1 to 2 million people because of potato farming. The climate was very bad, and it was a time when Ireland was a colony of UK, and British people just ignored. People were just dying, and they lost 1 to 2 million people. No food. Now both countries have more GNI per capita than Japan, and of course more than UK. I believe any country, if you look at USA, UK, and other countries, any countries, including small ones, any countries can change in about 15 years. It takes more than 10 years, but any country. And from outsiders, it looks like a miracle. And Mongolia should establish a shared vision. This is very important. In my project, I said as a respected, well-recognized country in the world. I said that, but this is my vision in my consulting, and you can develop your own vision of Mongolia. Next one is we engineers, scientists, and Buddhists should establish a new methodology, because the Western democracy looks obsolete. I mean, democracy has too many problems, and also communism. In democracy, I think all advanced countries are saying that democracy is good. It's good because voting rights are given to all the people, But when it comes to, it depends on the people. I mean, you have a very unstable politics because of this voting rights. And so some countries cannot develop very well. And I'm suggesting and I'm applying good Japanese management practices to all of my consulting service. And it's been very successful. And when I compare the conditions, when I start my consulting, and after my consulting service, it looks like a miracle. All the time it's a miracle. If you find out that your salaries become 4 times, if you're receiving, 500 US dollars, and then after that 2,000, 4 times, and going to the factory, they all try to, shake hands with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But I'm not doing it much. I'm only providing a concept. If a philosophy changes, people can change, and productivity improves. And the reasons are basically bottom up and top down. Bottom up and top down. When you're talking about politics, wherever you go, whatever country you go, all people are complaining. Our politicians are strange. They're doing something strange. They're not good. All people in the world are complaining. Why? Because they do not have appropriate bottom up. That is a major problem. Via small meetings. Election is a big meeting. After the big meeting, you cannot ask questions. Therefore, a lot of people are not satisfied. If you think about Mongolia as one enterprise, you put yourself in CEO's position. You put yourself in president position. You can think about something. That is today's exercise. And then also we are having leadership today by having a tournament deliberative democracy. Because I found in sports, all games should be fair. Fairness is very important in sports. So soccer, tennis, competitions, a lot of things are done by tournament. So I thought, why don't we apply tournament system in elections or to establish leadership? This is my idea. And the Westerners invented democracy. They brought democracy and communism to Asian countries. But it seems that they are not working pretty well. You are developing strategy, national strategy now in this program. But I think problem, I want to mention this. There is a dilemma between politics and economics. Politics and economics. People are complaining in many countries because they are talking about economics. Their life is not very good. They don't have enough nice living standards. They are talking about realities at the bottom. And they complain politicians are not doing pretty well. But politicians are doing politics. That's a dilemma, In case of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew was regarded as a dictator. In case of Japan, Liberal Democratic Party was always in power for more than 30 years, 40 years after the Second World War, and they had a tremendous high economic growth. Dictator is very important. I think if you believe dictator is bad, then you are kind of brainwashed. Leadership is very important. Okay? There must be people who voluntarily sacrifice. This is very important. Now, quality is imperative. In Singapore, they say that quality means state of mind. Quality, state of mind. They were struggling to find what is quality because they started quality control circle as Japanese did in the manufacturing sector. So they defined from what they discussed with Japanese consultants, they found quality means mindset.
창의력을 좀 스터디했습니다. 여기 여러분 스펙은 교수들 jangan juri logi kita. Because jangan itu menurut mindset itu sering dokter medik kita mah.
In communism, I know quality is not important. When I was in Uzbekistan consulting, I found that so many tractors. During the Soviet time, they were the biggest manufacturer of tractors in terms of the number. But every time they make a tractor, within 1 year, they are broken. It's Japanese tractors can work like 1 million hours, you know. But within 1 year in Uzbekistan, they are broken. So many broken tractors lying on the roadside. Meetings and create human relations. That is very important. Why do we have small meetings? It's because we need to create relations with others. And you have general election. A lot of in most countries, they don't have institutionalized small meetings. None of the countries have. Therefore, a lot of people are frustrated, and sometimes they create terrorism. Singaporeans were very innovative, that they found that Japanese did a good job in terms of economic development. The Japanese had so many small meetings in manufacturing sector called QCC. So when I went to Singapore and found that they have so many QCCs in government agencies, all government departments, ministries have QCCs. And the Japanese consultants thought, are they crazy? Because QCC is about manufacturing, but they did it in government sectors. Because they think government officers should understand Kaizen. Have relations with Japanese and Korean companies. Therefore, they sent their young people to Japan, Korea, and China. Because at that time, Asia was developing quickly. And I was surprised to have an interview with Irish officers. The scholarship was only one-way ticket. I have never seen any scholarship. And Irish government provided one-way ticket to young Irish people. Of course, they have Irish embassy in Japan, Tokyo. Therefore, they arranged the jobs for young people. They selected good ones from universities and they sent. And they gave one-way ticket. I guess you don't call it maybe a scholarship. It's a kind of one-way, so it's surprising to me. But the conclusion is that they look at their own countries as enterprises. Yeah, enterprises. That's Enterprise Mongolia from the Irish word, Enterprise Island. They have an agency called Enterprise Island. For instance, I visit the Irish embassy in Tokyo. There I find that they have Enterprise Island to support their industrial development. And also a campus company. Good universities have a concept of campus companies. And professors, teaching staff cooperate to develop new companies in Irish University. And I believe in 1990s, the 7 Irish companies went public, raised $2 billion in the US. $2 billion. Capitalization $2 billion by 7 Irish companies, by the students. This is a case of Singapore. They had always, Singapore has had one clear concept for each period. National strategy is taking an important role. Why they can do that? Because they have a dictatorship. For developing country, developing a company, discipline is very important. Talking about Kaizen, it starts with mindset and then discipline. So unless you have a good mindset to compete in the international market, you cannot be a good manager. 1960s from manufacturing. Okay, by the way, Singapore, when this became independent in 1960s, they had agriculture, fishermen, fishery, agriculture, fishery, and the drug traffickers, narcotic. It was a very, very bad problem. That is from manufacturing, light industries, just as Mongolians are doing. We're doing something about the textile industry. And then tourism, regional tourism became global center with Singaporean airlines. I think it's crazy, to have such a small country. They have good airport, and it became one of the best in the world, And then finance. All the people did not speak English. They taught English to all the Chinese, mostly they're Chinese. And the convention center, exhibition center is also crazy because in such a small country, they had constructed huge convention centers and exhibition centers. And then medical and academic research center. So they had a clear idea in each period. By the way, Singaporeans paid a lot of consulting fee to foreign people, good ones. And for your reference, the Japanese government was paying 100, 200 times as much as the average Japanese. Japanese government hired many Europeans and Americans and so on when they wanted to develop their country. They paid 200 times monthly salary. That's very important. In more than 200 years, 300 years ago, Japan one time had the biggest GNP in the world. Actually, Japan was number one in its economy when it was a country of gold and silver. But when Meiji restoration, Meiji reform was implemented, they didn't have gold, silver. So they started to manufacture silk. In order to be recognized as one of the respected good countries in the world. How many know Japan had a war against Russia? Yeah, you know? At that time, the size of the economy, Japan and Russia, do you know? Differences? 50. No, I think it's about 10-1. Military power, 10-1. Economic power, 10-1. 8-1 or 10-1 or something. Japan was 1. Russia was 8. Japan had a war against China also. But at that time, China was in trouble because of the Western invasion, narcotics. Japan had a war. How many know Japan had a war against USA, America? Yeah. No, Japanese are crazy, you know. Japanese are crazy, by definition. Yeah, reckless. And they do that. And they were able to have a war by getting finance from Jewish financial sector of UK because of my former company, Shell. Shell is Shell in Yokohama. Shell was started in Yokohama. So human relation is very important. He is a Jewish guy. He came to Japan at the age of 18 years old. He was Jewish family, the smallest son. One-way ticket. He had only $300 in his pocket, and he started collecting shells in Yokohama and started sending to his father in London. And by the way, he became a mayor of London later on. But that is the embryonic baby stage of shell. Remember this for the rest of their life. I hope you remember this slide. Big meeting and small meetings. Okay, if you look at this, the definition of small meeting is that if you can ask questions, that's small meeting. When your candidates are talking, you cannot ask questions. Not only here, but also in all countries, you cannot ask questions. That's not small meeting. Candidates, Trump can say anything, because nobody asks. Yeah. If he talks like that, Mexicans should go away. Muslims, Islamic people should go away. As a student in a small meeting, for instance, at the primary elementary school, the teachers say, "Go away, Trump, you're bad." Okay, but in big meeting, you can say anything. That's a problem of big meeting. Even the TV program, TV shows, that is characteristics of that has characteristics of big meetings, because you cannot ask questions. Announcer never answers to your questions. And small meeting, family talk, one-to-one meeting with several participants. Ideally, 4 people, 4 or 5. That's a small meeting. Of course, less than 4 or 5. So that's a definition of a small meeting. And that is important. Japanese QCC, Singaporeans QCC, small meetings, I like that. And you can ask questions. And you can learn. You cannot learn a lot from big meetings. This can be big meetings. So I want to change it to small meetings. Kaizen way. If you combine with small meetings, big meeting can be a great opportunity. Because we need big meetings and small meetings. And small meetings, we need to understand that the small meetings are very important. Within family, you should talk, discuss. Fathers and mothers talk to their children, children ask questions. That's quite basic, but that is very, very important. Thank you. Will change the world. Combination is very important. Okay, combination is very important. Through Kaizen and Kenzen. If you systematize in Mongolia, or even at your school, in this class, this is a big meeting, but after this, if you have small meetings, then the result will be, I would say, 3 times as much as only the case of big meeting. Big meeting is also very important as a leader, but small meetings are very important for the participants. And if you combine 2, then the results can be 3 times as effective as the case of only big meeting. By the way, at business school, in my business school, that's at the Garden Business School, they had small meetings every day. Every day, 2 hours, 1 hour at least, 2 hours, because they have cases, they discuss, they analyze. Every day, 4 or 5 students. And they recognize themselves. They will develop a kind of tough-mindedness. Tough-mindedness. This is very important. It's not a kind of forcing others to do something, but when you have different opinions, it's okay to have different opinions at the same meeting. Okay, that's kind of endurance to different opinions. That's tough-mindedness. Tough-mindedness. System. This is one. This is just one example. Election is a big meeting, as I mentioned, and inadequate information about, for instance, Trump. He may be a good. He may be a great leader. We don't know because he's using media. Media is doing some kind of sensations, you know. Also in French, Obdo something, you know. They had sensations, and they can sell their journals 10 times as before. When they became famous, that's a kind of thing, you know. Journalists are making things sensational so that they can make more money. The objective of media is making money, of course. Therefore, they take extreme opinions. Attitude by voters, because all people are voting. Therefore, when you think 100 hours, one vote. When you don't think at all, one vote. This is a kind of disincentive to think about politics, about your country. So if you have a disincentive in your company, the company will go bankrupt. And then number of candidates too small. If you want to select a good management consultant, at least 100 times. Well, we select the people 100 times at least, and we get two out of one or two only in Japan. And when they become independent after some consulting service experience, one or two can survive, others cannot. Consulting is a very, very strange business, and not easy to survive as a consultant. You know, the number of candidates too small in Japan, 30–40% of the community elections, no candidates. No candidates. You know, no election, just one. Not interest at all. Then, influenced by big organizations, when it comes to representatives or parliament members with big organizations. Okay, inappropriate influence by media. Some people are crazy. Crazy guys can be very famous and can be representatives in Japan because he's crazy, she's crazy, because media takes him, her, as an article, and then they become famous. They become known to the people, so they can become representatives. Very few experience hands-on in reality, because they are doing politicians for a long time in Japan, so they don't have real world. No one tells who votes who when scandals take place. No one is responsible for bad things. Zero bottom-up. This is the most fundamental problem. Zero bottom-up. And no community building. No small meetings at all. People don't care about politics. So many. Only complain. That means no Kaizen possible in the system. That is a fundamental problem of voting system, which the Westerners brought in all over the world. I want to change it. Okay? All issues could be tackled by the people, being taken by politics. Okay? Small meetings can, then you can improve. Okay. So I have been talking for about 40 minutes, so let's have a recess. But before having a recess, can I have questions? I'd like to take questions from the floor. Okay. Yes. Point out the industries. Well, I think if you apply SWOT analysis, you can come up with your strengths, you know, and then put money in there, then you can develop. This is very simple. What are the strengths of Mongolia? Let's take that. A very good question. Let's take that in our small meeting practice today. Yes? What is Kaizen?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about, are we ready for implementing the Kaizen as Mongolia? Are we ready for as a psychology or culturally? Are we ready for implementing Kaizen?
Yeah, Kaizen is ready for anybody.
Should we need some pre-works to implement the Kaizen?
Well, I think you need to have a kind of systematized way. For instance, if it is at a company, every month you set 1 hour for all employees of a company. They participate in small meetings and they write what they do, what are the areas for improvement. Yeah, and you need commitment. That's very important. Kaizen needs no money. Okay. This is because Japanese didn't have enough money after the Second War. They applied, but Kaizen is philosophy is very much related to Buddhism, I believe, and it's because mindset. Yeah, you improve your mindset first.
Yeah, that's the problem here in Mongolia: discipline and mindset.
If you talk about problems, I'll not talk about problems now, you know. Yeah, but this is a way of this is not a proper way of discussing. I will tell you how. Yeah, later on. Okay. And others, here.
There is a need a shared vision.
Shared vision.
Yes, shared vision. So, how about the Mongolians? Is there any shared vision for Mongolian to recommend?
If you ask me, you're Mongolian, I'm Japanese. And if you ask me that, there's no shared vision. That's a problem. Japanese were all impressed by the Singaporeans when we went there in 1980s because their eyes are different. But all people have clear vision. Eyes are different. Eyes look different. Eyes look different because it's a focused. Whoever you talk in the agencies, you talk to your eyes are different. From the other developing countries. I talk to you, your eyes are different. They are similarly focused on one thing because they have a focused, shared vision.
Албаны зүйл гэдэг юм уу? Асыга хараад хуваалцна гэдэг нь нэг зүйл анхаарал хандах. Бүгд нэгэн зүйл. Тэр зөв Монголын хувьд гэж ярих юм бол бид нэг зүйл тэндээ анхаарал хандуулах чухал. Миний хувьд бол Японы учраас японочууд ямар асыг анхаарал хандуулж тэрийг үлдээж чинь Монголын хувьд та нар өөрсдөө гаргах хэрэгтэй.
Yes.
What do you think? How they enter the Kaizen system for the political systems in Mongolia? And how do you think the Kaizen system for the political system of the Japanese?
Yeah, I think please ask in Mongolian, please also. Yeah, I mean.
Kaizen system Western system байгаа хэрэглэх юм бол их чухал. Гэхдээ ерөнхийдөө нэг чухал гэж сая ярьсан шүү дээ. Тэгээд энийг болохоор Японд яаж хэрэглэдэг Монгол яг яаж хэрэглэх зохицтой гэж бодож байна.
Does the Japanese use the Kaizen system in the political system?
Japanese, not. Because the society has it Kaizen. It's a society. Developed under the philosophy of Buddhism. The Japanese have this mindset. The Kaizen is not something special word at all. We daily. Every day we use it. Let's Kaizen. Let's do Kaizen. Yeah? This is deeply rooted in the mindsets of the people. They all believe we can improve. We can improve. Yeah. Problem is only politics in Japan. You know, they're kind of. I think Japanese and Asians and all of the people in the world are brainwashed by the Westerners, and Westerners don't realize that is a problem. They can improve the system. It is important, wherever you work in a company, you need to implement a system where Kaizen works. As a president, you don't have to work hard if Kaizen automatically solves problems. That's a very important. But in politics, there is no Kaizen system. That is a problem. If general code of ethics of the people in a country like Mongolia not high enough, that means you're selecting bad guys to come to Mongolia. I have an American friend in Japan. He says every time he buys something, he feels very ethical. Therefore, he becomes a nice guy in Japan, not in the States. Yeah, my friend Eric Newman is my friend, American friend. He lives in Japan, and he's my friend. Every time he buys something, even kind of petroleum, gasoline, because service is high quality, very nice, very polite, very quick. Therefore, he thinks he must be a good guy, good, nice guy in Japan. You know, in Japan. But he doesn't feel he wants to be a good guy in the States. If people in Mongolia say foreign people are not very good, you know, if people say foreign people are kind of bad behaviors and so on, you are choosing bad guys to Mongolia. Of course, there are, for instance, neighboring country like China. You feel a little bit. You may not like, and same thing in Japan, you know. But I'm sure Chinese tourists coming to Japan are behaving much better. If you see bad habit of somebody, I mean, you should not do that. You should not imitate. You should not assimilate. You should not learn from bad habits, bad customs, bad behavior. But you should learn from good behavior all the time. If somebody is late for class, the tuition should be higher for them. It is destroying your school. This is a kind of incentive system. This is a system this is one example of an incentive system to behave better. If somebody comes late, he should pay additional tuition. Because it is destroying your school reputation. It is destroying the atmosphere of a class, okay? This is the kind of incentive system. So that kind of system is very important, you know? If you find if one of your employees is doing a better job than others, you give more salaries, you know? This is very important. This is an incentive, you know? More sales, more better quality. You know, you give more money. I applied this in Kazakhstan, and then as a result, the company made a tremendous fortune, and they were able to, make their salaries 4 times as before. You know, very easy incentive. Whereas the Russians didn't have that during the Soviet time. The management improvement is easy, and the great thing is that you don't have to work hard when you have a good system. People work hard? No, they don't work hard. They don't have to work hard. They get money out of easy jobs because the system is there. You know? Toyota, I mean, even manufacturing system, they want to create a system where workers do not use their muscles too much. That's why they apply robotics. Okay, now this is the kind of system. In my suggestion system, this is a small group meeting, but you can, at the same time, you can choose great leaders at your school. Even 1,250 people are here. If you select 20% at each small meeting, we can make 250 people. Next year, 50 people. Next 10 and 2. Those two leaders have all the discussion contents. This is the way, in fact, Japanese are managing the companies. So this is a bottom-up and top-down. So I call it a dictatorship, but it's not really a dictatorship. It's a kind of good, sound leadership. I want to start, but I think just let me go quickly. I think there was a question from that student, that what are the problems of Mongolia? So I said, don't talk about problems. This is how you discuss. You discuss current, situation, not as problems. Just look at that. For instance, jobs are not, abundant for young people, for instance. You are exporting only a few strong things like textile, copper, natural resources. Okay, you just discuss this current situation, and then talk about vision, kind of ideals. What is the ideal status of Mongolia? Okay, we don't talk about problems. Then talk about barriers. Still, we are not talking about problems. We are talking about barriers. As barriers, we can conquer. We can solve. And you come up with solutions. Action plans. Action plans you discuss. Actually, we're not talking about problems. Of course, barriers are the problems, but important thing is psychology. Kaizen psychology is very important. And action plans, you take actions. And when you have different opinions, that comes from those four things. Difference in knowledge, difference in experience, difference in definition of the issue, how you define the issue, or preconditions. Difference in logical flow to come to a conclusion. These are differences. I say tough-mindedness when you face a different opinion. Usually, not only in Mongolia, but also in other countries, everywhere. Also in Japan. He has different opinion, I cannot talk. That's not the way you do. You should find out why they are different. 5 whys for that. Why. Therefore, you shouldn't have some kind of antagonistic feelings. Now we're going to have a kind of small meetings. So this is the exercise. This is we don't have enough time, so maybe only 1 hour. This is today's conclusion. Deliberative tournament election. But of course, the objective is for instance, to choose Kaizen leaders. In this class, this is the exercise, so this is not in reality. Small meetings, and this is now what I'm doing is big meeting. Well, you can ask questions, but that is limited. So this is basically a big meeting rather than small meetings. Bottom up and top down. From 1,250 students can participate. 4 times of discussion, you can choose 2. And the top 2 leaders have all the discussion results in their pockets. And discussion must be forward-looking, optimistic, and Kenzen on the long term, in the long term. We need to be warriors. You need to be samurai. Japanese are crazy, you know. We have war against all those big countries, you know, because we are samurai spirits. Warriors are, because you challenge, you are worried. You need to be worried. Is that okay? If you become executives, your job is worrying. Always you're worrying. That's your job. You implement a system where people can work very effectively, efficiently, and the company can make more money. And after that, you're worried. Is it okay? You talk to people, you know. But at the same time, you need to have a challenging spirit. Once you have a system, you have to do it non-stop. Non-stop. Now I want to introduce two brothers. Is it okay? Okay. We produced a song non-stop. So you listen to them.